Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the original Mets Guys podcast, episode 2, the first episode. We have our very first sponsor in episode 1. Go to shoptheshirt.com and type in the OMG pod to get 5% off your first purchase. How are we doing, Father?
Oh, son, I'm doing great. Another Sunday, another Giants loss, but otherwise doing well. I like the feedback and reactions we've gotten from our pilot episode that just came out last night. So it's still new, still churning, but so far it's really exciting to see people listening to it and giving us some feedback. I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah, like you said, we're recording this on Sunday, but when this comes out, it probably won't be Sunday. So last night is Saturday night. So that's when it came out. And yeah, we appreciate all of the comments, all the likes, all the support that we've gotten. We really do appreciate it. It's been awesome. And so today we're going to jump right into Mets and free agency and the Hall of Fame ballot. And then we're going to end off with talking about some Giants football.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
It sounds great to me. So we're going to be jumping right into some MLB baseball, we're going to have to cut a chunk.
I think we're going to jump into the 2024 season because we first got to recap what happened before we can think about the future. I'm hoping that by the time this episode comes out, which there won't be a lot of turnaround, we're going to hear some breaking news about Juan Soto. But before we even get excited about that, let's talk about the 2024 season, the ups, the downs, the fact that we got to the NLCS, the fact that we were 2 wins away from the World Series, first time in years that
2015.
we sniffed it, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have to talk about it. So let's acknowledge, right? Francisco Lindor, runner up to MVP, well deserved. We can discuss and argue about whether he should have got a first place vote or not. I think that it makes sense that he didn't get a first place vote because of the year that Ohtani had. We could talk about Carlos Mendoza and the job that he did, getting the team to really come together and achieve and overachieve as a team. And the fact that he got third place finish in the manager of the year, I don't get that. That I don't get. I did think Pat Murphy was going to win. I told
You
Azrael
did tell me,
Pat Murphy.
and I thought that Schilt was going to win, and Pat Murphy was going to come in third, and Mendy was going to come second. But I was
Right.
wrong completely.
As usual, I'm right about that. So Pat Murphy wins, deservingly so. Carlos Mendoza should have got the runner up, but he didn't. So, Zuri, what is your takeaway from the season? When you think back to the 2024 season, you think about how putrid of a start we got off to and ended
Yeah,
Game
I
6
mean,
of the LCS. Take it away.
I immediately think about everybody say you say 2025 the Mets 2025 season. Two things are going to pop into Mets fans' heads. Oh my God, and Grimace.
I mean the 24 season.
24, yeah, the 24 season because
See,
I'm getting
he's already thinking about 2025. I
I
said we gotta process 2024 before we jump ahead to 2025. This
I
guy's already next. He's already thinking ahead of
I'm
himself.
ahead of myself. I'm ready for another oh my God Grimace Juan Soto season. But anyway, yeah. So 2024 season, you think about oh my God, you think about Grimace. Let's talk about what really turned this team around. Is that Francisco Lindor team meeting, and ever after that meeting, it was a whole new ball club. They came out. They came out one. It looked like before that meeting, they looked like they were like, okay, we're here to play. We kind of know this is a punt season. Whatever, blah blah blah. We're gonna go out there. We're just gonna play. After that meeting, they came out there and it really looked like they wanted to be there. It looked like they wanted to play ball. They realized, hey, we're kind of hanging with it. Yeah, we're not doing so great, but we're hanging with it. So, I mean, I think that really changed the season. And I think coming 2025, Francisco Lindor needs to have that captain role. So, Nama, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't, Francisco Lindor is the captain of the team. Whether he's the official captain, whether he puts the C on his shoulder, which hasn't been done since John Franco did. So I don't know if whether he's officially called the captain of the team or unofficially. I think if P. Alonso resigns, we could see a co-captain situation. But that's irrelevant. I don't really care about captain. You're a captain if you're a captain. Whether you're called a captain or not, it doesn't matter. But Francisco Lindor is the leader of the team, and the Mets will go where he goes. Moving him to the leadoff spot was undeniably a catalyst for the team's offense coming together. Before the season started, I'll tell you, before the season started, we don't have the podcast, so we can't go back and listen to what I said, but I said that I think that the Mets are much better than people think they are. I think that the Mets are a solid contending team. I just don't think they have the pitching. I don't think they have the pitching to make it as far as their offense can take it. But I thought offensively they would be great. Jeff McNeil was a disaster in the beginning of the season, disaster, and Brett Beatty couldn't get on base and couldn't get hit. He couldn't get hits. Lindor struggled mightily in the beginning of the season, but by the time they got themselves together, they offensively that wasn't an issue for them. They were great. The pitching was the question, and when Sean Manaea and Luis Severino and Jose Quintana just kind of settled themselves and they were able to ride the wave, they were able to get through all of Edwin Diaz's ups and downs. And Edwin Diaz, I'll tell you, underratedly, was a huge part of this season because they had to ride his ups and downs. And I don't know if you remember this, he said, I shouldn't be the closer. He benched himself at some point. Then he got suspended.
We were at that game.
We were at the game in here in Wrigley where he came out and they found the sticky stuff on his hand, got suspended. That whole thing could have derailed like crazy. And Francisco and then Edwin Diaz came back, closed the game after 39 games. He closed a game. And from then on, he was not his untouchable self, but he was an MLB closer for a contending team.
Yeah, I mean,
So
when you talk about Edwin Diaz, you kind of have to understand that he came back from an injury that is really hard for pitchers to come back from. A lot of and especially a pitcher like Edwin Diaz, where a lot of his mechanics is in his lower half. Right, you see how he pitches. He gets really low into his legs. He uses his legs a lot. So with that torn MCL, it's a hard injury to come back from in general. But for a pitcher like Edwin Diaz, it's a little harder to come back from. I hated Edwin Diaz for most of the season. I'm not. I'm gonna say it flat. But when you look at what he did in Atlanta, right? In that last game in the last game of the season, where in that 164th, 161st or whatever. Really, you know what I'm saying. But
he doesn't know what he's saying,
I
but we all
don't.
get what he's saying.
Everybody
It was
knows
the
what I'm saying.
161st game of the season.
Right,
They had
and
to make up the game in
exactly.
Atlanta.
But
Last two games, a
right,
doubleheader.
so you look at that, and that hit that first inning he comes back out, which was the bottom of the eighth. We were up, and he comes in,
Blows it.
and all of a sudden we're no longer up. Right, whatever he did, I think it was Ozzy Albies double off the wall or something. I'm not remembering
He
exactly
blew the
what it
save.
was. He blew the save, right? And I know from the Mets chats that I'm on, everybody was saying that's it, the season's done because we're not gonna win the next game after a game like this. What happens? We come back out. Francisco Lindor hits that 2-run bomb, 2-run bomb, right? And
Take the
now
lead again.
what?
And take the lead again.
All right, we took the lead again, and all of a sudden, I actually know somebody who was there. And he was texting us live. He said, "Oh my God, Edwin Diaz is coming back out. What is going on?" And so he sends that text, and we're all freaking out, like, what is Mendy thinking? What is going on? This and that. He walks the first batter and then lights out. So I think at some point we all have to realize that Edwin Diaz really was, like you said, a really big part of the season in a negative way and in a very positive way also. Being able to overcome his fails to go back out in that ninth inning and close the door so the Mets can clinch that wild card spot, I think it's massive.
Massive. And I'll tell you that the fact that he, kept his composure. Listen, if you're going to be a Mets closer, right, you're gonna cause intense stress in the hearts of Mets fans. It's just part of, like, if you want to be a Mets closer, that's what you want to do. The fact that we were given an Edwin Diaz, a closer that was lights out in previous seasons, right? We kind of like forgot that in order to be a Mets closer, you have to give heartache to Mets fans. You have to go the way of John Franco and Armando Benitez, even Billy Wagner. Sometimes K-Rod did it. You have to stress out the team. And Edwin Diaz finally was doing that to the Mets, but what he was doing was he was blowing the saves. And the fact that he was able to like regroup and just we can count on him in the playoffs. We were able to count on him at the end of the season. Just really shows.
I wouldn't say we can count on him. I think we all believed in him, but we were all terrified the second we saw or heard that he's walking out. I wouldn't say we counted. I said we believed, but we were also terrified.
Tomato, tomato. Right, but I'll tell you one player that I'm excited about. Right, as we think about like what happened 24, who really showed himself, and who really, as we think about the future, I'm excited about. And then I want to hear from you a player that maybe you're excited about based off of last year's performance. I'm excited about David Peterson. David Peterson has always had this stuff, and he could never just put it together. He showed glimpses. He showed signs. He's shown his ability to pitch as a big league pitcher. But the question was, can he be a starter? Can he be a middle of a rotation starter or a back end starter? I don't think anyone thought he'd be an ace, but he showed this year that he can pull it all together and be consistent, middle to back end of the rotation starter.
I would say that he showed some kind of stuff that can make an argument for a rotation like we had last year. You take beginning of the season, if we had David Peterson up there at the beginning of the season, the way he threw, he could have been our ace. The way he was pitching last season.
If David Peterson was our ace, then we would have had other problems, right? That means then Mania didn't pull it together. Severino wasn't consistent.
No,
didn't give us what we needed.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, at the beginning of the season, right, when David Peterson did not get called up until later in the season, or did not come back from injury or whatever it was. But at the beginning of the season, when Manaea didn't have it, Quintana didn't have it, Sevy was kind of iffy. The way that David Peterson pitched this year, he could have been our ace at the beginning of the year. I think you come later down the line, right? You got to put Manaea in front of him because Manaea lights out the way he changed his rotation and the way he pitches, lights out. He could be, he can be an ace in a lot of rotations now, wherever he goes. So I think that David Peterson is a 3-4-5 guy, but for the Mets last season, at the beginning of the season, he could have been an ace.
Yeah, so you think about this, right? He started 21 games for the Mets, where Manaea, Severino, Quintana, 32, 31, and 31 respectively, and he had 10 less starts for the Mets. Right, the next pitcher that had as many, the next most starts was Tyler McGill. But Peterson had the lowest ERA. Right, he had a 2.90 ERA, only 3 losses, which the wins losses overrated. At the same time, his WHIP was the highest of all those guys, right? And his batting average against was tied with Severino for the highest amongst those guys. So he was really good and a shot in the arm, for that rotation when they needed it desperately. And the fact that he was able to be just consistent, I think going forward, if we can get 31 starts out of him, 30 starts out of him, and he can stay healthy the whole season, and he can stay with the club the whole season, which I think he earned a spot in that rotation. So you're gonna have Kodai Senga and David Peterson as your only sure guys for next year, right? Tyler McGill, I think the jury's still out on him, but you have Senga and you have Peterson. The question is who's going to fill the rest of the three spots. But if we can get 30 starts out of him, and if he can pitch the way he pitched last year, I think that we'll be in good shape. So I'm looking forward to see what David Peterson has in store for us next year.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
who's someone that you think the Mets should be excited about based off of their
I I
season this year?
am stoked to see what Mark Vientos can do in a full season. Oh my! If he, I'm, I don't, I'm trying to find the words to say this, but I said this for a long time, and I think a lot of Mets fans also said this: is why the hell isn't Mark Vientos playing in the big leagues? Why are we still trusting Brett Beatty, who hasn't really proven himself, right? And they kept him. He's there. And this season he gets called up, hits a walk off home run, and then gets sent back down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you call him up. He's there for the rest of the season. He finishes 260, batting 266 with. Well, I don't have the stat up in front of me, but
27 homers.
27 home runs. I think 80 something RBIs. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I will.
I'm sure you will. You like correcting me.
Yeah, 27 home runs, 71 RBIs, and in 413 at bats.
Right. It was 110 games, maybe
111, very good.
111 games. Could you imagine what he can do in a full season? I mean, the way he played, that's a 35, 40 home run season, 100, 95, 100 RBI season.
Mm-hmm.
He's batting 260, right? That's an incredible season for a young guy like Mark Vientos. I am stoked. And
Listen, yeah,
I'm also, this is a side note, but I'm also excited to see Alvy come back again next year. I know he didn't really have the greatest season this year, but he had some terrible, horrible, no good luck with injuries and other things. So I'm excited to see what he can do next year.
yeah. Listen, the thing that makes catchers, the top catchers, the Mike Piazzas, the Buster Posies, the Johnny Bench, the Yogi Berras, the thing that makes them so, Salvi, right? Salvador Perez, even though he doesn't really catch anymore, but he did for a long time. Yadi or Molina, those guys, is that they take a beating behind the plate. They take a beating, and then they have to go out and perform offensively. So I think Francisco Alvarez, we're forgetting that he's a little dude. He's like 21 years old, 22 years old,
I think
something like
he's
that.
20. I think he's 23. I think he just turned 23.
Okay, happy birthday, Alvy. But I think part of that grind, I think he's part of his development is gonna be learning how to pace himself. The way he sets himself up as a catcher, he's got to improve that. He's got to work with someone. I did see some videos of him, reworking his positioning back behind the plate. I think for his health and for his mobility and for his ability to not get fouls off his groin as much as he did, like he's gonna have to make some adjustments back there. But I agree with you. I think Francisco Alvarez batted 237 with only 11 home runs. He's not an 11 home run guy.
And
He's a
and and when
he's
he
a
came
12
back,
home run guy.
he had a stretch towards the end of the season where it clicked for him and he started going nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm really really excited. I'm really excited for both those guys, Mark Vientos and Francisco Alvarez. I think we're gonna have a extremely fun group to watch.
All right. Now we got to think about though, what do we need for next year, Right? What's your free agent wish list? Who do you think
So
that we need?
yeah, so I know a lot of people want Corbin Burns. And this might be a hot take. I don't know if you agree with this or not. I want absolutely nothing to do with Corbin Burns. I do not want to give him any money. He's got a ton of home run troubles. If you look at the advanced metrics, he would have given up the most home runs as a starting pitcher, if not for that ridiculous wall in the Oriole Park.
Ballpark,
It
Camden
came
Yards.
Camden Yards, that ridiculous wall. Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, but they're moving that wall in
Moving it in, yeah.
by a ton of feet. That cutter to righties is a home run ball. It's served on a platter. I want nothing to do with him. Nothing. I want Max Fried.
Okay.
I love Max Fried. I think he fits the pitching the way that Hefner works. He works well with lefties. You saw it this year with Mania.
And
I
Peterson.
and Peterson and Quintana, who had a much better year than he did, previous years. I love Max Fried. I really want Max Fried. I think he'll be a great addition. My number two, my number two for the pitchers to go out and get is I want Walker Buehler. I think he's a phenomenal pitcher. I think he's had a couple rough injuries coming up. I've seen a couple people say that he's going to get a multi-year deal. I just don't see it happening. I think he'll get a 1 to 2 year, 3 year max kind of deal. I would love for the Mets to give him the same type of deal that we gave Mania and Sevy. That 1 year, come here, prove yourself, and if you do prove yourself, then you're here for the long run. Because also, again, he's a young pitcher. I think he's phenomenal. And then I really wouldn't mind going out and shopping for a third baseman and letting Mark DH. I think we're gonna need a DH.
I thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say move Mark to first base.
No,
It means
no, no,
Alonso is
no,
gone. But oh yeah, I don't know.
no. I wouldn't mind. I mean, I again, I don't think I don't think they will shop for a third baseman because I think unless they realize that they're not going to get Pete back, which I Steve Cohen, I think Steve Cohen knows that he can do whatever he wants. So yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind going after a guy like Willie Adames, kind of give him a 4 year, 75 million type deal. He's like 26 or 27, I think. And then I don't want Alex Bregman. I think Alex Bregman is actually going to go to the Yankees, and then they're going to move.
Uh oh. We gotta penalize
I
them. We gotta penalize them. That's
what do we do?
$5 in the dirty word jar.
Five.
$5 in the dirty word jar.
I'm sorry for everybody. I'm terribly sorry. I think Bregman is going to go to the other team in New York, the other baseball team in New York. Look at this first episode, and I'm already breaking the rules of the podcast.
Disgusting.
I know.
$5. You go in $5 in the swear jar.
And okay. We're creating a swear jar. Next episode, you'll see a swear jar.
Oh, we should bring it here. It's true.
Yeah, anytime that we mention the other team's name in New York, we're gonna put $5 in it, and then we'll give it away to charity. Sounds good to me. You agree?
Where else would we give it?
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, I think Bregman is gonna go to the other team in New York. I think he's gonna get a ridiculous deal for absolutely no reason from Hal Steinbrenner. Let's see, and then obviously I want Soto. I think that he will make us a. We already are a World Series contender, in my opinion, but he'll make us a solidified World Series contender. And then I would love to add some arms into the bullpen, whoever it is. I said Estevez, which a lot of people, I got some negative reactions to that on Twitter.
I don't want him.
So you don't want to see this more negative reactions, but yeah, I want Estevez. I wouldn't mind getting a couple other guys just to pad the bullpen a little bit. I think that was probably one of our biggest weak points in the 2024 season. So, but also we got to realize that Daniel Nunez is going to come back, and he was phenomenal for us. And then obviously I want to re-sign Pete. That's my wish list.
Yeah, I think with that, like re-signing Pete is just as important. I know I'm about to get some fury right here, but I think re-signing Pete is just as important as signing Soto.
You're
And
crazy.
I think, yeah, I thought that would be the reaction. I think that both of them are probably going to re-sign with the Mets, right? I'm not ready to move Vientos to first base. I hear a lot of talk about Vientos going to first base. Vientos taking over for Pete, let Pete walk in his 30s, giving him long-term contract. Vientos has had incredible year. One incredible year. Before I let Pete Alonso walk, I want to see Vientos do it again. I'm not ready to give it over. Whether you want to throw him at DH, I like the idea of him being at DH. I didn't. I thought he did a decent job at third base, right? I thought he did a decent job at third base, but I'm not ready to turn the keys over to Vientos to first base and let Pete Alonso walk out the door. So
I
I
uh,
want to see Pete back, and I want to see Vientos prove himself.
I agree with you, and also Pete Alonso is not the greatest defensive. I mean, he's probably one of the worst defensive first basemen in the league, but he also has the best scoop slash pick percentage in the league, which I saw this right after the season ended. If you can look it up, I think he had somewhere around
I don't know
ninety two
where to
percent.
look that up.
I think he had around a 92% scoop slash pick percentage. So he does a phenomenal job at scooping the ball at scooping. We've never really seen Mark Vientos play first base, so I wouldn't be comfortable with him going there either. And also, I mean, I don't think I think you're a little bit crazy for saying that Pete is just as important as Juan Soto, because that's saying that Pete Alonso is the same caliber of a player as Juan Soto, which he's just not.
He's not, but I'll tell you, I think for the Mets organization, he is. Because I think that you can take the money that's going to go to Soto and do something else with it. I think that what Pete Alonso will add to the franchise and to the stability of the team will equal out the other parts. I don't think that he's as good of a player as Juan Soto, right? If I'm starting a franchise today, right, I'm going Juan Soto over Pete Alonso, no doubt, of course. But I think that you can take the money that's going to go to Soto, spread it around wide, and be all right.
Here's
And Pete Alonso is going to add so much to the organization, the franchise, the clubhouse, the fans. We know that he thrives in New York. We saw Soto do very well in New York over
But
there.
that New York is not the same New York as this New York. Two very different New Yorks. But here's I actually we talked about this for like a brief second or two. But I said I think what's going to happen is I think that once Pete Alonso sees that the Mets sign Juan Soto, is that he'll go for a cheaper deal or less money, because he'll see that, okay, we're serious about winning a World Series here, and he's going to want to be a part of that, and he's going to want to be a part of it as a New York Met. So I think he'll come down. I guess because I think we all kind of don't want to give Pete Alonso $200 million. I
And I,
don't.
and I, don't, I don't think he's going to get 200 million, right? I think he's going to get somewhere between what Matt Olson got and what Freddie Freeman got.
What did
I
Matt
think
Olson get?
Matt Olson, I think, got a AAV of 27 million, something like
Okay.
that, or something along those lines. But he's going to get somewhere between that. But so let's say the Mets have to up it and give him a higher AAV and just take down the years or whatever it is. I think it's going to be 6 years. I think it'll be 6 years with possibly an option for a seventh year, and then maybe he gets to opt out earlier in the contract for around 25, 27, maybe $28 million. I think that's where Pete Alonso is gonna settle. But he's not gonna take less to stay with the Mets if less is embarrassingly under Matt Olson and Freddie
No,
Freeman. I
I
think it's gonna
agree.
need to be over there.
I think what will happen, or my prediction at least, or what I think will happen, is that we'll sign Juan Soto to a 14, 15 years, 705 to $710 million contract. With I also saw a report that he wants a couple opt outs. As you know, the original that little leak that came out saying that we gave him 15 years, 660 with four opt outs and a mutual option. So that's why we gave him four opt outs, is because he wants some opt outs in there. So I think the Mets will give him a gorgeous large contract, And then I think Pete Alonso will sign for somewhere around the 6 to 7 year, 160, $175 million range.
Yeah, maybe up to 180 even.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that he'll come because he'll get 200 million from another organization, right? I see as threats for Pete Alonso. I see the Cubs as a threat because they have money to spend and they kind of need that superstar. And Pete Alonso's a superstar, especially after these reports coming out saying that they kind of want to trade Belly to release some money. I think Pete Alonso is a great guy to start rebuilding your organization around,
Mhm.
or continue that build. And then obviously the other team in New York is another big threat because they said he's a backup plan. Which if I'm a player, by the way, and I hear a report saying that I'm a backup plan, I want absolutely nothing to do with that organization. I think that's an
Yeah.
embarrassment, an embarrassing to have come out.
Well, that organization is an embarrassing organization. They should just cease to exist. So
No, I
that's
agree. But just for somebody to say that to the media, a backup plan, I mean, I would have
yeah.
zero interest in playing for them.
Okay. Let's take a moment right now just to thank our sponsor again, shoptheshirt.com. OMG Pod in the coupon code to get 5% off. And listen, help them out. Help yourself out with a really cool customized shirts or shirts for the holiday season at shoptheshirt.com. OMG Pod in the coupon code. Get yourself 5% off and show them that the OMG Pod is your inspiration.
Yeah. So let's. Yeah, I kind of cut you off in your wish list. If you want to continue going that, or
Oh
we
no,
can.
no! Listen, I think your wish list is great. I think obviously we need pitching. We need pitching. So whether it's going to be, I'm not as negative against Corbin Burns as you are. I take Corbin Burns. I take Corbin Burns on a 5-year contract, maybe with an opt out. He with an opt out for him at 3 years. But I think that, listen, he's a top pitcher on the market. He has a relationship with David Stearns. David Stearns knows him well. So if David Stearns is going to go after him, I do feel comfortable with that. But we need to figure out pitching. You talked about before Walker Bueller on a similar deal to Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. I think it's going to have to look more like something between Quintana and Severino, where there's going to be an opt out. He can, sign for a 2 to 3 year deal. You can opt out after the first year, somewhere around 15 million, maybe with 18 million in the second year. But he can opt out and try to, get that if he has a solid year this year, coming back off of his very shaky season. He was awesome in the playoffs, but during the season he was very shaky. Give me Walker Bueller, Max Fried. Sure, would love him, but he's going to end up across the country, back in his hometown of Los Angeles, with the Dodgers.
Dodgers. What about you? What's your wish list? What do you got? What do you got on
You
the?
you just asked me about my wish list.
Was that your wish list, or was you commenting on my wish list?
No, I'm saying that's the. I mean, listen, we need pitching. We need Soto. We need Alonso. I think after that, we could look to trade. There was one report I saw out there, which was intriguing to me, which was a Jeff McNeil for Jordan Montgomery, 1-for-1 deal.
Hell
I
no.
would, I
Hell
would.
no. I don't want Montgomery. I don't
Okay,
want him. Horrible. Look at
I,
the season he had.
I would take a look at that deal. If I'm David Stearns, I'm taking a look at that deal. But I don't think there's room for Jeff McNeil on the team. As much as I like him and I think he's solid, and I think what he did the last half of the season is what we can expect from him moving forward. But we have to move some pieces because we're going to get into Iglesias, right? Do we bring him back? I'd rather have Iglesias on the team than Jeff McNeil, and I think we're going to give second base to Louis Acuna. We're forgetting Ronnie Mauricio is going to be back. We have other prospects down, which some of whom may get traded.
Yeah.
I like to see a deal for
Actually,
Garrett. I like to see a deal for Garrett Crochet, right? And I think that's going to involve Beatty, Ryan Clifford, whether it's Mauricio or Jet Williams. in that deal with Josh Tong or another decently rated prospect to get Garrett Crochet. That'll take one slot for the rotation. We're gonna have to give up something for a guy like him. We're gonna have to give
I
up something for a guy like Crochet.
I actually don't think we're going to be trading much of any prospects this offseason. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the most known questions coming out of these Soto meetings is him asking about what is the word? Asking about the farm system and how how their prospects are progressing. And he's right to ask. I mean, if he wants to be locked in, if he wants a long-term deal, he wants to know what he's walking into. So I really don't think that we'll be trading some of our top prospects, and especially not a lot of them in one big deal. I don't see that happening just because I know that's probably Soto's going to be looking at that. So I really don't think that a lot of I did think at the beginning of the offseason that we'll be trading away a ton of prospects. I don't think so anymore. I think that we're going to hold on to as much as we can, and I believe that I do believe that McNeil and Marte and Beatty will be gone in this offseason, or at least by the deadline. And I think that there'll be a couple teams who'll give us prospects for them.
By the trade deadline in 2025. All right, I listen. I think the time to trade those guys will be in the offseason. I think Marte is going to be back. McNeil and Beatty, if I had to guess, will be gone before opening day on 2025.
Sounds good. So let's jump into our predictions for the
Yeah.
2025 offseason. We've got a couple names, couple big names. So I'm going to ask you a couple players. I want you to tell me what team that they're going to be on next season, what their contract is going to look like. Are you ready?
Yeah, I was born ready.
So let's start off with Teoscar Hernandez.
So I do believe Teoscar Hernandez will likely go back to the Dodgers. I think the Royals need a big bat. So I think they're the dark horse. I think he's going to go. He's going to either end up in one of those blue teams. He's going to end up either with the Royals or with the Dodgers. I think he gets somewhere around 3 years, somewhere between. I'm gonna give a big range, but somewhere between 55 and 75 million. But I think he ends up with one of the blue teams, the Dodgers or the Royals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I have the Dodgers also as a resign. I think that's the most likely outcome. I have the Blue Jays as a dark horse for them.
Okay,
They are in desperate need of something.
we're gonna bring him back.
They need something. I actually have the Blue Jays as a threat or contender for a lot of these players here, especially a lot of the bats, just because they have money to spend. They have a good amount of money to spend, and they really need somebody, and we saw that with George Springer, where they kind of went all out for him. So I think we see something like that again with a lot of these big bats.
Okay.
All right, now let's jump to Christian Walker.
Christian Walker will be playing for the other New York team. I don't think it's. I don't think Alonso is a backup plan. I think that's really just to get Christian Walker. Christian Walker's negotiating deals, stuff like that. To just try as a negotiating tactic to talk about Pete Alonso. Although I do believe that if the Mets sign Soto and they take away that guy from the other New York team, the Steinbrenner resentment is going to kick up, and they're going to channel a little George Steinbrenner, and then I could see them trying to go crazy for Petey. But at the end of the day, I think Pete Alonso will be back with the Mets. I think we'll see Soto come; he'll be back with the Mets, and I do think that Christian Walker will be wearing pinstripes in the Bronx for the next number of years.
I actually have him going to the Cubs. I have him going to the Cubs. I think the Cubs need a first baseman pretty badly. Christian Walker is a phenomenal fielder. He's got a couple Gold Gloves under his belt. Like I said, they have money to spend. I don't really think he's a very expensive option. I think because I agree with you. I think Pete Alonso is going to, at the end of the day, re-sign with the Mets, and I think it's going to be a bidding war between the Cubs and the other team in New York for Christian Walker.
Okay.
Let's jump to Anthony Santander.
Ooh, he's a tough call. Anthony Santander. I can see him going back to Baltimore. I can see him signing with maybe the Royals if they don't get Teoscar Hernandez. I can see that as a possibility, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes at if he ends up possibly in Detroit. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, the other but at the same time, everyone's gonna be holding back to see what happens with Soto, and if Soto signs with the Mets, then I think he becomes an option in the outfield for the other New York team also. But I don't think he's going to sign with any New York team. I don't think he'll sign with the Mets. I don't think he'll sign over there. I think he'll end up either back in Baltimore or the Royals or the Tigers. But
Yeah.
my guess is the Royals. My guess is it's going to be Baltimore. And if Teoscar signs with the Blue Jays, Santander may and find himself back in not back, but find himself in Kansas City.
Yeah, and to your point about the Soto thing, I don't think any of these big name players are going to be signed until after Soto signs. I don't think there's a much discussion with these players happening right now, like in general. Right, there are rumors going around, but whatever. There's nothing like really. This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. I think everybody's kind of waiting for Soto to sign, and I think after Soto signs, it's just going to be it's going to be an avalanche of player signing.
Yeah, I definitely think that, but I'll tell you, listen here. Over Thanksgiving, we're going to start hearing rumors as to where Soto's leaning. If not, breaking news that he signs. Over
There's already
Thanksgiving.
there's a lot of there's already a lot of not rumors but speculation. He today started following Starling Marte, Jose Iglesias, and JDM,
Did he
and
really?
yeah, and Alex Cohn and Steve Cohn on Instagram.
Did he really?
Yeah, so
By the way, I'm not a social media person, so I don't really know like what goes on. That's where I count on him for because yeah.
yeah, so there's already a lot of speculation. A lot of people on X are saying, "Oh, it's a done deal." So that's that. That's already some news with Soto. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he signs over Thanksgiving or over the next 3 weeks. With Anthony Santander, I have him in a 3-team mix. I have him with the Blue Jays, Orioles, and Kansas City. I think I think Kansas City is probably the team he'll go to, though. I think he's a great fit for Kansas City in that ballpark. His swing, to me, it's a match made in heaven for him. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Orioles. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Blue Jays. And if Teoscar Hernandez doesn't go back to LA, I agree with you. He'll be on the Dodgers. Willie Adames is actually an interesting one because there's a lot of places that he can go. So, tell me your thoughts on him.
I'll tell you where I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he'll be wearing blue and orange in Queens. I think he's going to find someone that's going to overpay and he's going to go somewhere where he thinks that he could win, where he thinks that he could actually have an impact on the team. And I do believe if they can convince him, they could twist his arm, aka give him enough money. I think Willie Adames ends up in San Francisco.
Okay, I'm to be honest, I'm not mad at it. There's so many teams that I see him going to. I see him going to the Braves, who need a shortstop, and I think he can win there. I think he knows that he can win there. It's just whether or not the Braves offer him any money or pay attention to him. I think he's a good fit there. I wouldn't want him to go there because
Nope.
that would suck. But again, if Juan Soto's on the Mets, I don't really care where anybody else goes. So the Mariners, I see are is another good fit for him.
Who's the shortstop? Who's the shortstop there in St. Louis? In
Uh,
Seattle, sorry.
I think it's J.P. Crawford.
J.P. Crawford, right?
So who middle line,
Yeah, I mean we can move
good
him,
at
but
best. But yeah, I think that he's a good fit there. I also don't think he's going to be in Queens in this next coming season. I wouldn't be mad if he is. San Francisco is another, another spot I see him in, and then the last spot I can see him in is Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, you have Javi Baez. Why do they need anyone else?
You really want to get into the discussion of Javi Baez?
I was joking. Let's move
Okay.
on.
Alrighty, so let's get to Blake Snell. Where do you think Blake Snell is going to be in the 2025 MLB season?
So it's really hard. That's a tough call. I don't know. I want to say the Mets. I say the Mets are a team that can give him something. What I do think is he's looking for something long term, and David Stern doesn't like giving out long term deals to pitchers. So there is a part of me that thinks Mets, and the other part of me thinks that he'll end up. I don't know. I can see him going. I can see him going back to San Diego. I can see him going back. I can see him going to the Dodgers, depending on if they lose Walker Buehler and Jack Flaherty. I can see that being an option. So, yeah, I would say that my hunch is he'll go back to the Giants or one of the SoCal teams.
So you're saying he's staying in LA?
He's staying in California.
He's staying in California, not LA.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they swindle a deal for him in Queens, but
I doubt it. I doubt it. Like you said, he's looking for a long term deal, and I don't think he's going to get that here. I think he will get it in Chicago with the Cubs. I think it's a good fit for him. Pair him with
but now you're asking the Ricketts family to give out tons of money, right? They're going after Christian Walker, they're going after Blake Snell.
The question
they don't
is,
spend lots of money.
question is, are they ready to spend that money, or are they just going to make their fans hate them even more, just like the Wilpons made their fans hate them year after year after year. So the question is, when are they going to start? I think it's going to be this season where they start spending their money.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, we got Max Fried.
Max Fried will be a Los Angeles Dodger. Done.
No doubt in your mind.
No doubt in my mind. Going home. End the sentence. Period. Exclamation point. No asterisk or question mark.
I see him in three places. One place is just because I really want him.
I see him in three places. I see him in 30 possible places.
No,
I've been doing the same thing also.
I see him in three places. One is only because I really want him in one place.
Yeah.
So let's start. I think the most probable option is also going to be LA. I think he's going to be on the Dodgers. My number 2 spot for him is going to be the Astros. I think that's a good spot for him. I think that the Astros need. I mean, this was the first time in a really long time where they didn't make it to the NLCS or they weren't a part of that. So I think they're gonna indulge a little bit into this free agency market. I think Max Fried is going to be a good place for him to go. And then I want him on the Mets. I really do, but whether he's there or not, I don't know.
Possible, but not likely.
Not likely.
Possible, but he'll be in the Dodgers.
It'll be the same type of situation with Blake Snell. He's going to want a long-term deal, and David Stearns is not going to give it to him.
I think he can get what he wants and be home. So,
yeah. Like I said, I agree. I think he'll most likely be in LA, but we can only hope.
Okay.
That brings us to the top 3. Corbin Burnes, where are you seeing him?
Corbin Burnes, I think that he's part of the trifecta that the Mets are after. I don't know if I think he's number 3 of the top of the trifecta, but I do believe that he'll sign with the Mets on a 5-year deal with an opt out after 3 or 1, some creative deal. But I see a 5-year deal with the Mets for Corbin Burnes.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I don't want him, he's a part of that trifecta. He'll be with the Mets. I really don't see otherwise. Maybe he'll go back to the Orioles. But I really only see him.
He's done with the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, I really just see him in Queens next year.
Okay.
Pete Alonso, where is the polar bear going?
The polar bear is going to re-sign with the Mets. Now the question's going to be: is there a team out there that will throw stupid money at him to get him? If there is a team that's going to throw stupid money at him, it's going to be a team in Houston.
Yeah, you think
I
so?
think Houston they desperately need some power. They with their team's getting a little bit older, so I mean they
I mean,
don't have that top.
they just be adding age though.
They would be adding age, but he's got another few years, right? You got to figure
And
Bregman will probably leave Houston, and I think that Pete Alonso is going to get a potentially stupid offer from that team, and I think the whole no state income tax of there may influence Pete Alonso. So I think that's possible, but I'm saying Mets.
yeah, and to your point, if if it were to be Houston, I think he'd thrive there with that short porch. He'd be hitting a ton of home runs. Same thing with the Cubs at Wrigley. He'd be hitting a ton of home runs there. And this is, I believe, the first year where Pete Alonso has played 3 games in Wrigley and hasn't hit at least 2 home runs. So I think I do believe that he's going to be in blue and orange again next year. But the top 3 suitors I see for him would be the Stros, Cubs, and the other team in New York. I think all 3 of those stadiums play to his power and play to his power perfectly.
Listen, if he wants to put records up, he'll sign in Colorado, right? I mean, the guy hits nukes in Colorado. Everybody, I could hit a nuke in Colorado, right?
You couldn't
I
hit
I
jack
couldn't. I
anywhere.
probably couldn't hit it out of the infield. That's true. But in Colorado is my most likely chance to hit it out of the infield. But I do think that the Mets are going to resign him. I don't think any other team is going to have a shot. The team that I think will throw has the most potential to throw stupid money at him to potentially influence him to sign there will be Houston.
Yeah, I agree. I have not disagreed with you much today.
Oh, yeah, that's so touching. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
So this is the oh sorry.
You're
See,
emotional.
in the pilot episode, you say we're gonna get emotional. I said no, but you will, and then you
Because
said
you see it. All right, listen, here we go. Before we wrap it up, before we wrap it up, right? We talked about the 24 season. We talked about who we want for 25, where we think everyone else is going to sign. Let's maybe this will cut out of our out of the thing. Let's leave the Hall of Fame thing for next episode, right? Because we're coming up on an hour now. So let's leave it out. Let me get your thoughts. Let
we
me get your
there's still one name in the free agent list that we haven't talked about.
Oh,
So, and I'm shocked that you forgot about this because
I
this
because we
is
talked about him the entire episode. We've been talking about him.
well,
Juan
who
Soto
else?
will sign with the Mets. Done. Done deal.
What is Steve Cohn, Uncle Stevie going to give Juan Soto?
Uncle Steve will give whatever he needs to get Juan Soto.
Yeah, I agree. And you know
Does he
we
need to give 13 years? Does he need to give 15 years? Does he need to give 25 years? He's gonna give Juan. Okay, I'm joking. Not 25 years. He's gonna give Juan Soto whatever he needs.
and I had a conversation with shout out Flavor Flay. I had a conversation with him about the situation that happened with Jacob Degrom. Right, he got an offer from from the Rangers, and they said, "Hey, if you hang up the phone, you don't got it." I don't think that's going to be the same thing here because I think he knows that Steve Cohn is going to up him,
Not
up
only that,
anybody.
not only that is I think that Steve Cohn in his meeting with Scott Boras obviously don't know this, but this is what I think. In his meeting with Scott Boras, told him that we're going to do a package deal. I'm not just signing this one guy from you, right? I'm going to sign him. I'm going to sign Alonso. I'm going to sign Burns. I'm going to sign the guy that nobody wants to sign, but you need to get a contract. I'll sign him, but you're going to come to, but we're getting Soto, and we're going to work out a deal that makes sense for everyone. But because I have the resources to sign whoever I want, whenever I want, however I want, and you want to make money, I want to win a championship. let's do this. And I think that's what that's what the meeting with Scott Boras was when they met.
Yeah, and to your point, there's nobody else in the big leagues that can compete with him. The next closest is Hal Steinbrenner, who's got I think one. His
I
net
mean,
worth.
The Dodgers just get anybody and everybody they want.
Hal Steinbrenner is, I believe, the second richest owner in baseball with a $1.5 billion net worth.
Uh,
Steve
I mean,
Cohen. Steve Cohen has $21.3 billion in the bank. There is nobody that is going to compete with him.
no, there's
And
nobody. Listen,
if he has to give $800 million to Juan Soto, he'll give Juan Soto $800 million.
Yamamoto was offered more money by the Mets, but he wanted to sign with the Dodgers. He wanted to be with Shohei. He wanted to go there.
Right. I mean,
It wasn't because
that
it wasn't
wasn't
because he
even
was outbid by the Dodgers. It's because he chose the Dodgers over the
right.
Mets.
That wasn't anything but he wanted to be with Shohei, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't ask you about Roki Sasaki, because I don't think he's just going to go to the Dodgers.
Well, they also have the biggest international pool money, so Roki Sasaki will be on the Dodgers.
Even
But
if they didn't, I think he'd still be going to the Dodgers regardless of the international pool money. I don't know why he would go anywhere else. I mean, you have Shohei, you have
well,
Yamamoto, and then you have Sasaki. I mean,
you can you can make an argument that he wants to go somewhere where he can become his own person and doesn't want to be coupled with all the other Japanese stars. He wants to be his own person. I don't know him. I don't know the type of person he is. Maybe that's something that influences him. Maybe he doesn't. But I definitely think he'll end up in the West Coast, whether it's Seattle. But I do think he's going to end up with the Dodgers because they have the most money. And you're right. There's some comfort level there with Otani and Yamamoto. That being said, Soto, let's get it back to this. Let's be crystal clear. Juan Soto will be a New York Met.
yeah. Well, I don't see I truly don't see him anywhere else besides the New York Metropolitans coming the coming 2025 season.
Yeah.
So take on your closing statement.
My closing statement has to be a comment about the New York Football Giants here. Okay? Daniel Jones, benched, asked for his release, gets released. Giants, I think they played football today. I know that they lost.
They lost 30-7.
30-7. I'll be honest with you, as I sit here right now, I don't even know how they scored that 7. I don't know who scored the touchdown.
It was a 1-yard rush by Devin Singletary.
Okay. Devin Singletary, 1 yard shot, right? The reason why Tommy DeVito is starting over Drew Lock is because he's Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets.
Tommy Cutlets,
the only
baby.
reason I forgot who I heard. This isn't my own thought. I heard this from someone else. I don't know. I forgot who. So I'm gonna give a shout out to whoever it was that said this, but I think this is spot on. The only reason why Tommy DeVito is starting is because he's the only reason why New York Football Giant fans will come out to MetLife Stadium for the rest of the season. He's the only reason. No one wants to go see Drew Lock. I'm sure he's great, but no one wants to see Drew Lock. Daniel Jones, what bothered me about this whole thing is that Daniel Jones asked for his release. You have a contract. They're going to cut you at the end of the year. Don't ask for a release. Don't ask for a release. Sit there, third string, whatever it is. I get it. I don't know. I don't like these players coming in and asking for their release and stuff like that. Giants said, who cares? Go. No sweat off their back. They're going to pay another $20 million for him. I heard reports that the Cowboys and Raiders are already in discussions with him.
Well, they can't be in discussion with him until he clears
whatever.
waivers.
But maybe not the discussions with him, but the reports are that they're looking to jump on him.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. I also saw that that the Ravens could be a spot for him. The 49ers could be a spot for him.
Honestly, I think 49ers are I was going to say I think the 49ers are the best bet for him. But the one thing that's clear is that everybody, the way they talk about Daniel Jones, he's a good quarterback. What happened in New York and why he failed and why he was so bad, I can't explain it. Saquon Barkley I don't know if we can find that clip, but Saquon Barkley, basically like took a shot at the Giants and says, "Listen, maybe he'll do as well as I did over here." Leaving. I'm talking about like leaving New York. It's like so maybe there's some toxic stuff happening in New
Yeah,
York.
I think that both New York football teams need to clear house, get rid of everybody, and just restart. And we see the Jets are already doing that. I don't. I really don't understand. I mean, we're gonna have a great draft pick this season for the Giants. We're gonna have a good draft pick, as long as Tommy Cutlass doesn't win 3 games like he won 3 games last year. But the question is who are you gonna draft, right? Because you got to go get a quarterback. The question is, who are you going to get? You get Shador Sanders, you get Cam Ward. Who is that, right? Who is that pick? And you need to. There needs to be some. The development needs to change for these players, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have, regardless of who it is, they're going to come in and get thrown in right away, which I don't like. Right? I'd rather them sit and be behind an experienced quarterback. The only thing is that we don't have an experienced quarterback to put them under, to be mentored by.
There's one quarterback that will be available next year. The question is, do you want him?
Now, who is it?
Aaron Rodgers.
Hell no.
I'm
No.
with you.
I also don't think he's going to leave the Jets. I think the only way he leaves the Jets is if Daniel Hackett's leave the Jets. But I don't think that he'll leave the Jets just because I don't think that he's going to get money elsewhere. So,
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want him either. Money, no money, it doesn't matter. I don't think that I don't want that personality on the Giants. They need to figure out someone else. Maybe it's a Sam Darnold. Maybe it's some other veteran holdover to help develop, and maybe it's the rookie that they get. Starts right away. But I agree that at this point, listen, I will always try to catch myself for calling for people's jobs. I don't think Brian Dable is so bad. I think that Joe Shane's got to figure out a better strategy because his decision to pick Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley
outrageous.
has
Outrageous.
blown up in his face, and I don't know if the Mara family is going to be able to tolerate that going into next year, but we'll see.
Yeah. My one question is why did it take this long to sit him?
Yeah,
Were you
because
guys?
it's money. It's always comes down to money, and also by all reports, by everyone who sees him, he's a good quarterback. He's not a Jameis. He's not a what's the guy? He's not a Ryan Leaf, and he's not a what was that Raiders quarterback that turned out to be a complete bust, Jamarcus Russell. He wasn't any of these disasters, right, of quarterbacks. He is a solid quarterback, but for some reason it just didn't work for him in New York.
You're going to get a lot of hate
And I
for
don't know if
saying
he's going
that,
to
by
work
the
for
way.
him. What?
So you're going to get a lot of hate for saying that he's a good quarterback because I think he was a horrible quarterback.
Listen, it's not me saying it. Listen to every pundit who knows a lot more about football than I do. No one says the guy's trash. Maybe some say his guy is a backup quarterback, right? But listen, everyone that talks about him sings his praises, and the fact that he failed in New York doesn't mean he's going to fail somewhere else. But he needs to restart, and
I agree.
that's what I'm saying.
Alrighty.